This is Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. I'm Nancy Solomon. Tonight we'll talk about vaccine access and a new report that alleges one of the powerful political bosses of New Jersey is making a fortune from taxpayer-funded insurance. Listeners, what questions do you have for the governor? Call us with them at 844-745-8255. We'll also be reading your questions on social media using the hashtag AskGovMurphy. The number again to call, 844-745-8255. And we're joined now by Governor Phil Murphy. Good evening.
Nancy, good evening. Thank you, as always, for having me.
And we're going to start with something very sad, the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. He was shot and killed in Utah today while speaking at a college there. He was 31 and a conservative activist and founder of Turning Point USA. And the increase in political violence is really quite troubling. And I just thought you might want to say something about it before we really get started.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised it. I was going to raise it, Nancy, myself. Just awful. Let's put to the side, I'm not sure there's a whole lot that Charlie Kirk and I would have agreed on. Although in fairness, he had been reaching out. I know he had done something with Governor Newsom in California sometime earlier this year. But just put that aside. Awful. Political violence has no place in America. It doesn't matter what you think or what wing you're in. And I've seen the video, which is horrific. But this is a guy with two young kids, I'm told, early 30s, charismatic, lots of followers and friends, and the guy's just gunned down. I'm told that my friend, who I chaired the National Governors Association with, Spencer Cox, Charlie was killed in Utah. I'm not sure I think you said that. So the governor of Utah is Spencer Cox, who's a dear friend and an outstanding governor. Again, a guy where there's a lot that we don't agree on. I'm told Spencer just gave, I missed it, an extraordinary speech about, reminding folks what America is and isn't, and let's come together. I'm very gratified that a whole host of Democrats, including yours truly, came out immediately when he was shot, and since the word has come down that he passed away. Just awful. It's just awful. It's sort of different time and place, but it gives you that same sort of jolt that we had, you and Dave and I will remember in the 60s when
we were all kids.
Right? One after another, just that jolt, that kick in the stomach. So God rest his soul, and let's hope, and so far I'm happy to say that people are saying the right things. Let's hope we learn the right things from this, and that we reject across the board political violence. The other piece of this, which is kind of takes your breath away, tomorrow Tammy and I will be in New York City, as we have been every September 11th for 8 years, with the governor of New York, senior members of the Trump administration, the mayor of New York, the folks who are running for mayor of New York, political folks from all sides, for this to come, period, anytime, but also on the eve of the 24th commemoration of the tragedy of 9/11, I think adds, if possible, another level of poignancy to it.
Where were you that day?
9/11? I'll tell you a story I was recounting for our youngest son, Sam, who was not yet born, by the way, which is hard to believe. Sam's in his 20s and shows you how many years ago this is. I was still at Goldman Sachs. We had a management committee dinner the night before, and two of us left the dinner. One was the head of the firm, who was headed to China. I was headed to London. Got to John F. Kennedy Airport, and I don't know if you recall, there was an awful storm the night of the 10th of September, which unfortunately, my flight was 4 hours delayed. Unfortunately, it cleared the weather out for Tuesday the 11th. But this is a time with no cell phones. I get into London, I jump in a cab, and I go right to work, as opposed to going to a hotel and take a shower or whatever, and walked into the scene. This would have been about 1:30 in the afternoon London time, which is 5 hours ahead, about 8:30 in the morning. and just people like zombies. And we all know and then of course you're thinking, who do you know who
Right.
works there? And our firm was downtown, so there was that just unbelievable memories. And obviously, God rest all the souls lost that day, and Charlie Kirk today. And we move on, and please God, America finds a way to continue to come together.
Okay, well, moving on to something a little more cheerful. I wasn't expecting to start the show like that, but so you're
No.
leaving for India next week
Yeah.
to recruit businesses there to invest in New Jersey. And the first thing that came to my mind when I heard that was wondering if mass deportations of immigrants by the Trump administration is going to cause a problem for you in trying to recruit people to come to this country. I mean, look at what's happened to South Korea and the folks working at the Hyundai plant in South
Yeah.
Carolina. I mean, not South Carolina,
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah. Quite striking. It was in Georgia, which is in the current vernacular or landscape. Not the highest concern. We're expecting we made an affirmative. Let me back up and say India has been a source of jobs and investments at a level unlike any other country in the world. In fact, about a year ago, our backlog of potential jobs and investment in India was equal to every other country that we were dealing with in the world. This is our second mission there. The two things I think that we will face and expect to face is, number one, 50% tariffs on India,
Right.
which was a surprise to a lot of folks, including the Indians. President Trump very upset that India continues to purchase Russian oil. I'm personally, without knowing all the facts right now, I'm personally optimistic that we'll find a way through that. And the other one is visas for Indian students. There are over 2,000 that are awaiting their visas for New Jersey universities alone in this semester, which has already started. So we expect that we're bringing a whole bunch of our higher ed presidents with us, again, deliberately to have that conversation. So listen, I don't control American tariff policies. I'm not a tariff guy. I think it's a mistake, particularly with an ally. I certainly don't control visa policies. So I think those are the two bigger ones. Yeah, the South Korean LG Hyundai experience probably elevates that concern as well. But we feel strongly, particularly given the hundreds of thousands in the Indian American diaspora in New Jersey, the jobs that have been created, we think this is absolutely the right moment to say, you know what, things may be choppy at the national level, but they're not with Jersey. We're here for you in good times and in bad. And hopefully both the visas and the tariffs sort their way to a better place.
Okay, well, good luck with that. So let's see what's going on with questions coming in from social media. David Matthau, WHYY, what do you have?
The David Matthau.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. And hello, Governor. Ashley from Raritan says, Governor, what are your thoughts on having a law in New Jersey against secret police? As a woman, I think it's terrifying that ICE agents wear plain clothes and masks and won't identify themselves. What should I do if I see armed men in plain clothes who won't identify themselves abducting my neighbor? And before you answer that question, we had a lot of questions in this line, a number of emails asking what can the state do about ICE raids, about policies issued by the White House. Jennifer from Flemington said, what power does the governor have to contradict edicts issued by the current president?
Those are all big questions. I should have said up front that I've got Maggie Garbarino and Kieran Cheth with me tonight. So Maggie and Kieran, could I ask you a favor to get Kate McDonald, our great chief counsel, to follow up with both Ashley and is it Jennifer?
Yes.
On those questions. So on the first one, it's concerning. Senator Booker, among others, has introduced legislation at the federal level that would require proper identification for law enforcement. We have supported that and will continue to support it. I don't blame Ashley for being concerned. I mean, there's a time and a place when you're undercover and there's a time and a place, it seems to me, when you should not be undercover. In the former, you're trying to catch bad guys. I get that. In the latter, if you're just sort of out there with a big fishing net trying to nab a lot of people and catch them by surprise, that makes me very uncomfortable. What laws could we put in place as it relates to that specifically? I don't know, because I know what our protocols are for in-state New Jersey law enforcement, including state police, and I have felt quite comfortable with those. I don't control the feds, which is a real issue here, and that gets to the bigger question, I guess, that Jennifer asked: what powers do we have to push back on this? And it depends. We sue a lot. Attorney General Matt Plotkin is either leading or joining multi-state legal actions, it feels like daily, that we coordinate on. And to a certain extent, those have succeeded, both in the first Trump term and in the second. Secondly, state laws that we think distinguish us and put us on the right side of history, such as the Immigrant Trust Directive from 2018, which has, among other things, not the only reason, but it's among other reasons why we're the safest state in America. That basically says we're going to go after criminals. We don't care what their immigration status is, as opposed to we're going to cold call people only because of their immigration status, including those who are doing nothing wrong. That latter, that is, and we all know this painfully right now, is a federal lane, if you will. Catching criminals is certainly our lane, and in many cases we work with the feds. So we work with the FBI, we work with Homeland Security, and other agencies. So to a certain extent, you can push back on these things. You could certainly use your bully pulpit, like supporting Senator Booker's law, which we have and will continue to do. And we can pass laws in the state, but there is going to be a category where the feds are the feds, and we'll do what we can.
You've also made the point several times over the last few months on the show that folks who live in districts with the 3 districts that have Republican Congress people representing them should be calling them. And if they object to this policy, they should let their Republican Congress people know, because they're obviously the ones in power right now.
It's a great point. And all this redistricting stuff that's going on nationally, just based on the laws and the Constitution of New Jersey, there's very little we can do except winning at the ballot box. And elections have consequences, and representatives.
We're seeing that this year, aren't
right?
we? Yeah.
You betcha, in a big way. Folks need to be heard, and that's a great point.
We're getting a lot of calls about Delaney Hall in Newark. We're going to take one of them. We're going to go to Carol from Bergen County. Carol, you're on the line with the governor.
Hey, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you, and hello, Governor, and all those who are listening. My essential question is, what do you now know in depth about the conditions in Delaney Hall, both for the detainees, for their families who wait in long, exhausting lines to get to see them, and also information about who's in charge there, who funds that detention center, and what can we do to eliminate it? Thank you.
Carol, thank you. On the latter question, it's the feds. And you saw Mayor Ras Baraka quite famously tried to inspect it. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver. It is the right of a member of Congress to be able to inspect and show up at federal facilities. And that's something that please God remains beyond question, but you never know these days. I honestly will tell you, we don't know nearly as much as we should. And Delaney Hall is the source of your question, and it's a good one, and it's a concern. And I sadly would say a year from now, if things keep going the way they're going, and the next governor is sitting here, we're going to be talking about a lot more places than Delaney Hall. I'm going to ask Carol, Rob Field and our team to reach out to you and just go through what we do and we do not know. But it's a concern. The lack of transparency, which I suspect will come up in different dimensions in our conversation tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of transparency is always an issue. And this is something it's consistent with what Ashley asked about and Jennifer asked about through via Dave, is when there's a sort of a opaqueness to, you name it, law enforcement with a gotcha angle, or a detention center where we can't get eyes on the inside, to pick two examples, that's concerning, and we should all be concerned. But Carol, I will thank you for the question, and I'm going to ask Rob on our team to follow up with you.
We have a few minutes before we're going to take a quick break, so let's try to squeeze in another caller. We have Paula from Teaneck calling in. Paula, you're on the line with the governor.
Hey, Paula.
Hi, Governor Murphy. Your administration previously rejected the Williams-Nessie pipeline that would cut through central Jersey and Raritan Bay, and it would send gas to New York. And we in New Jersey would get stuck with the pollution, the public health, and other risks. And now that it looks like the Trump administration's making a deal with Governor Hochul from New York to fast track the project. You've opposed it in the past. My question, will you oppose the Nessie pipeline again this time? And I'm going to ask you once again, I've been asking you this for years, will you do something to stop the PVSC gas plant in the Ironbound of Newark? It's
Okay.
a major, it would be a polluter in addition to all the pollution people face already in the Ironbound. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Paula. I'll get Dennis Zeveloff, who's our head of policy, to follow up with you on both. Do I have time to answer, Nance? I don't want to violate the commercial
2 minutes.
guidelines.
2.5.
I look a good chance to filibuster here. On Nessie, no news to make. I got protested a couple of times this week by folks, by the way, who are good-hearted, and one woman in particular I've been seeing for almost 8 years at events.
Maybe that's Paula.
It could be Paula, actually. I don't know. I'm not sure I know her name, so it could be Paula. I get their concerns. The one fact, I believe that when Nessie fell apart last time, I think New York actually is the one that made the first move on canceling it. Secondly, I'm not sure.
Can you just explain what this is?
Well, it's a pipeline that doesn't benefit New Jersey in the sense of natural gas does not come into New Jersey to fill up our natural gas plants, but it traverses the Raritan Bay into New York. And New York is the primary beneficiary. So they have sort of the principal action. Do they want this because it's for them or not? And then we would then have to approve it as a transit matter, essentially. So no news to make. I'm not aware of any deal that's been cut. You implied that, Paula. I know there's rumors out there. I'm not aware of any. I'll be with Governor Hochul in the morning, and perhaps this will come up. And on all these things, we call balls and strikes, no matter what the fuel source is, no matter what the nature of it is, whether it's a pipeline or a transmission line or you name it. We call balls and strikes on each project, and we'll do that assuming it comes before us. On PVSC, I've got a different view on this one, I have to say. And
this is a power plant in the
East Ward of Newark.
Yes,
Yep.
Thank you.
And the short version is, I think this is going to go ahead. It's been greened up over the long time that it has been on the boards. And I think there's a legitimate debate to be had as to what is more or less environmentally damaging. This is a plant quite famously that spewed a lot of stuff out in Superstorm Sandy. This would allow us to prevent that. I think that's actually a positive. So that one, I think we're going to agree to disagree on.
Oh, you're helping me out so much with the time post I got to make. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be taking more of your calls. I'm Nancy Solomon, and you're listening to Ask Governor Murphy.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? You can call us at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Or pose your question on X or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon, and we are live with Governor Phil Murphy. So let's talk about COVID vaccinations.
First of all, was that the
yeah.
mayor of Pittsburgh, Doug Doyle, I just heard?
Yes, it was.
Just checking. Okay.
It's become that with that beautiful low voice.
I love that.
That's our man, Doug Doyle.
I love that.
So it's become more difficult to get a COVID vaccine now that the Trump administration and RFK Jr. have changed the CDC recommendations. And that caused the FDA to change its policies. So in New Jersey, big box pharmacies are only giving shots to people over the age of 65 or those with health conditions that may put them at higher risk. There have been reports of some pharmacies requiring a prescription. Before I ask you anything about this, I know we have a caller who wants to talk vaccines,
Okay.
so let's see what his question is,
Yep.
and then if I don't get we'll see if my question's the same as his. So we
Okay.
have Mike from Tewksbury on the line.
Hey, Mike.
Hi.
Go ahead, you're on the line with the governor.
Yeah, so I wanted to thank you for signing the executive order to allow people over the age of, I think 6 months to have access to the COVID vaccine.
Yes.
My question is, I understand Massachusetts was able to require healthcare companies to cover that fully. And what I read was that that's not guaranteed in New Jersey. I'm wondering but strongly encourage that companies cover the full cost. I'm wondering what strongly encourage means. Like, what kind of leverage does the governor have to make sure healthcare companies do cover New Jersey's healthcare citizen healthcare needs? And then moving forward, as state and federal health guidelines diverge on other diseases, treatments, vaccines, whatever, how can you ensure that New Jersey residents get covered by their healthcare companies when the healthcare companies are kind of stuck in the middle of two different policies regarding healthcare?
Yeah. And I assume, Mike, when you say healthcare companies, you mean, do you get insurance to cover the cost
insurance
of?
companies. I mean,
Yeah.
not the pharmaceutical manufacturers.
Yep.
I'm talking about the health insurance.
Yep. Understood. First of all, we'll get Maggie and Kieran. We'll get the aforementioned Dennis Eveloff to follow up with Mike, number one. Number two, let me go up to the 10,000 foot level, and I'll get Mike's answer. The punchline, Mike, is we have a lot of leverage, and I'm not sure that Massachusetts is quite where you indicated. I hope they are, by the way, because that'd be a good model, a good fact for us. But we have a lot of leverage, and we are strongly encouraging, is the word right now, other folks in the healthcare system to go along with where we want them to go along. But the 10,000 foot level this is crazy. We know these vaccines work, period. And this is a state that should know, because we lost over 35,000 people, and that number would have been multiples had we not had very effective vaccines, which, by the way, President Trump in the first time around deserves credit as being one of the main actors on Operation Warp Speed to get those vaccines almost a miraculously short amount of time to get them onto the street. This is something that we know works. We should be proud of. I just am extremely worried by what's coming out of the Department of Health and Human Services, the CDC, everything. The Kennedy influence here is unmistakably seeping into all these decisions. So we have said, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. Mike's correct. 6 months up, you're eligible for a vaccine. One minor point is between 6 months and 3 years, the general American Pediatrics Association, et cetera, saying, you know what, really doctors and nurses are the ones who know how to give those shots for the little toddlers, which is why the automatic pharmacy approval is 3 years up, but we're cool with 6 months up, but 6 months to 3 years should be a doctor or a nurse. And we are strongly encouraging, we're on the right side of the facts, the right side of history. We're basing this on science, and we're going to do everything we can to get the other big players to come along and play ball, and that includes the insurance companies. And let me say unequivocally, there's also noise around this in Washington against the double shot that we've gotten. We've talked about it on the show, the double flu, COVID, go in once and get them both in, end of September into October. We are absolutely affirmatively saying that that's on and good and cool, and you could do that. But enough. I mean, this is the rejection of science and fact in this administration generally. It's assault on higher education, to pick another example, but in the health and human services space in particular is setting our country back, God knows, and people will be sick and die as a result of this. Mike, I can't tell you that if this keeps going in this direction, the second part of your question is we're going to keep facing this. And at a certain point, something's got to give here. I saw President Trump speak skeptically about Florida. You saw Florida pull out all of its vaccine mandates for their kids in school. Even I think he is thinking, he said something like that feels really hard or severe or something like that. I hope, please God, cooler, saner heads prevail, particularly when the facts and science are crystal clear, such as they are with COVID vaccines.
I read that, I think it was last Friday, Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli told a group that he would support parental choice when it comes to vaccinating children for entrance into school.
Listen, I don't
we could be facing a very big change coming down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
with that kind of leadership.
This isn't a political forum, but that's I missed that. If that's very concerning. I love parents. Parents should be a part of our kids' education. They should be at the table with the doctor and the nurse and the kid. But we have medical experts for a reason. Enough already.
Okay, let's move on.
Get that off my chest.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mike, thanks for the call. So let's talk about the state controller, Kevin Walsh, and his report that came out yesterday.
I'm shocked this is coming up.
About George Norcross and public insurance contracts. I'm sure you're aware of it. And but let me explain
I'm
to
aware,
listeners.
but I haven't read it, in fairness. I want to make sure I say that.
Okay, well, I hope we're going to be able to have a good conversation about it, but I need to explain for listeners. So George Norcross is the powerful boss of the political machine that runs South Jersey. He was indicted last year in a sweeping racketeering indictment brought by the Attorney General. A judge dismissed the case, but that decision is still under appeal. Now, the state controller, which is the independent arm of state government that investigates fraud, waste, and abuse, has conducted an investigation into Norcross's insurance business and how, basically, I'm boiling it down, but that he has essentially cornered the health insurance market for government entities in New Jersey. So that's towns, counties, school districts, almost all of them. And the controller, Kevin Walsh, says that that was done in violation of state law. And there's a conflict of interest between the public insurance entities and the company that Norcross owns, Connor, Strong, and Buckaloo, which is basically the public entities are awarding itself, these government are awarding the government contracts to Connor Strong and Buckaloo, and the person making that decision works for both the public insurance funds and Connor Strong. So without competitive bids, taxpayers are on the hook for higher costs. And the controller wrote, quote, "In each case, the result was the same, a concentration of power over taxpayer-funded health benefits in the hands of a single private company with minimal oversight and limited awareness among local officials responsible for safeguarding those funds." So you've gotten the report. That's the way the process works. The controller does the investigation, sends it to you and to the leadership of the legislature. What's your take on this? What are you going to do about it?
To be determined. It feels to me a question. And by the way, violating state laws, I actually don't know that. So that's something that you mentioned. We're in the process of running that down. Department of Community Affairs, Division of Banking and Insurance. And there's been pretty strong pushback on that assertion already, I know. But I'll put that to the side because that's something that I'm not qualified at this sitting to respond to. It feels to me like a situation where I mentioned this 20 minutes ago. Transparency feels to me to be the lacking, the assertion that is lacking. Transparency is lacking, and that, my view is if the legislature wants to pursue that in terms of shining a light on this industry, count me in to be a part of that process.
It goes a lot further than transparency, because what you have is these are public insurance funds. Because insurance became so expensive for towns and school districts and counties, they created these funds where they pooled together. So you get like a whole bunch of towns in one county buying insurance together.
We're living this in insurance.
That's taxpayer funded. Those are government contracts, and they're being awarded to a private company that actually owns these so-called public agencies that aren't really public anymore. And they're just taking all the business.
Yeah, that's the assertion.
Yeah.
I would argue.
This is your controller that you appointed.
I know that. But listen, he is independent, and that's the way it should be. And that's the way it's always been. So he's not checking with me on how do you feel about this or that. I've never had one conversation with him about this, and that's the way it should be, by the way.
Yeah, but
or about anything else he's
once you get the report, now it's at your doorstep to do something.
And you also mentioned that the legislative leadership has it. And my point is, I do think transparency is a big element of the assertion here. One guy's opinion, but that's what I would say humbly. And I think if that's the case, and there's an appetite in the legislature to basically shine a light on this industry in a way that isn't shined at the moment, count me in to work alongside them.
It drives me a little crazy, I have to say, because of two things. One, we hear our elected leaders say all the time how much they want to cut taxes. Taxes are too high. We want to cut taxes. And people who live here, God knows, want their taxes cut. And then we hear waste, fraud, and abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse. We want to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse. But here is a clear example. And, the controller sends out these reports and nothing happens.
No. That's not necessarily true at all. Kevin's been in that seat for, I don't know how many reports he's put out. He's been in there a long, since virtually the beginning of our administration. He's done some really good work. And a lot of it's been followed up on. So this just came out, yesterday?
Yeah, I'm not saying it won't be followed out on, but it's kind of, if you look at all the reports he's put out and how little things have changed, it's not too big of a leap. Here's a guy who the legislature, democratically controlled, won't even confirm him. He's still the acting controller because he's been looking into these sorts of things that they don't want him looking into.
You're looking at the guy who nominated him. So in fairness.
But do you have his back? Are you going to defend him? Because now the attack machine is coming out against him.
Yeah, listen, that's a separate point. That this position exists for a reason. There's an independence associated with it for a reason. By the way, ditto the Attorney General, independent, and it should be that way. This is too early to tell where this leads, but my gut, again, my quick read of this is that if a lot brighter light were shined in this whole industry, it would address a lot of the concerns that have come out of this. But I'm going to defer judgment until we all get a chance to dig in on this, and we will.
One last thing on it, the New Jersey Working Families Alliance, turns out they're the ones who wrote the letter to the controller asking for an investigation a year or two ago. Executive Director Antoinette Miles released a statement today calling on your administration and state lawmakers to act on the report. They want to see hearings, and they're calling on public officials to pledge to fix broken public contracting practices so that they benefit working families and not the politically connected. That last part was a quote. Is that a pledge you would make, that you want to see the state fix its broken government contracting practices?
It's a little bit like, does your mother know you beat your dog? I mean, of course you want to fix anything that's corrupt, and we've done a lot of that. As it relates to hearings, that's obviously a decision that has to be made in the legislative branch. And New Jersey Working Families has been a very good partner in a whole lot of stuff that we've done together. And that give me a chance to say a positive commercial about them. They've been very good actors and good partners for now going on 8 years. We shall see.
Okay, let's go to the phones. We have Cesar from Fort Lee on the line.
Hey, Cesar.
We do not
Hi,
have Cesar.
thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure, sir.
Yes. Awesome. I'm
What do
glad
you got?
you hear me. So pleasure to be speaking with you both. I'm a big fan, Governor Murphy. Thank you so much for your contributions. Born and raised here in Fort Lee, New Jersey, millennial who's been working in the city and longtime commuter for over 15 years. Due to some of those health challenges that we saw during COVID peaks, instability with the transit bus system, the MTA, bus and subway are not my ideal option to get to work. That brings me to the ferry system. A one-way from the Edgewater ferry to the city, or from Weehawken to the city, can cost $24 round trip. Parking, that private parking adds another $14. So my question to you is, why isn't our ferry system publicly owned? Or at the very least, why aren't we building municipal parking lots in these areas to make sure that New Jersey commuters have a safe and affordable option into the city? And very quickly as well, is there a way to work with the different waterfront developers in the Edgewater, Weehawken area to prevent them from privatizing key parts of those river walkways that would otherwise allow bikers from up north to safely ride down to the PATH train station, for example?
Yeah, those are a lot of questions, Cesar. I'm going to have Rob Field, who I mentioned earlier, follow up with you. Bunch of different things. First of all, we're doing a lot with the Bike Walk Coalition. The Greenway we just kicked off a couple of months ago. That's going to be a historic project, ultimately of 8 or 9 miles long. And I think a lot of the communities you're referring to rightfully grappling with the development side, which is very attractive, but also with the preservation side. On the other hand, the ferry companies are private, as you know. They're not cheap. I agree with you 100%. Why are we not putting more money into the ferry system? We're not sitting around right now with a lot of loose change under the couch, under the cushions of the couch. In a perfect world, would we control the ferry system? Yeah, probably that would be a good addendum to the rail and bus operations, but we don't. And the private operators have been very good at this, but you're absolutely right that the ticket is not cheap. And there's increasingly, we're a hot state, so there's less and less space to park the car, which I complete sympathy with. And also the price to do that is not going down. So no crisp answer, but let's get Rob and you together. And I'd love to get, you got some good ideas we haven't thought of. Count us in, we're all ears. Thank you.
Thanks for your call, Cesar. It is, of course, lovely to get on a ferry and go into the city, but whatever. We're going to take a quick break and we'll get back with more of your questions. You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? You can call us at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Or pose your question on X or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon, and we're live with Governor Phil Murphy. So you have an app where people can text you questions,
Yep.
text your staff, and they get answers. And your staff has been sharing it with the show. You get a lot of questions, and they're good ones.
Yeah.
So I picked one because, and I picked this one because I thought there's a deadline coming up for the Stay in New Jersey program. So it would be a nice reminder for people to let
Okay.
them know. So, but the question is, so where is the question? I have it here in front of me. Basically, Gary from East Hanover wants to know if the Stay NJ property tax break for seniors is happening.
Yeah, it is. Glad we got the question out. It is happening, Gary, and I will get the team to follow up with you. Again, I may ask, Dennis and his people to do so. Yes, no other way to put it.
Well, the deadline is October 31st to apply.
Halloween is the deadline.
Yeah.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
And you can get like a $6,500
Yeah.
up to $6,500 off or half of your property taxes if you're over the age of 65, up to $6,500.
Correct, and up to an income limit of $500,000. It
Which
is
pretty high.
Which is pretty high. It's a half a plan year, so it begins January 1st, but the budget only goes through June 30. So that will continue to be something that needs to be funded in future budget years, but it's on. And Gary, I would say both for a specific question about NJ Stay, or Stay NJ rather, or more broadly, Anchor, Senior Freeze, you name it, a good website to go to, I think, is propertytaxrelief.nj.gov. propertytaxrelief.nj.gov. The Anchor program has already been historic. Again, all of these are means tested under certain income levels, but particularly the past few years, it's juiced your return if you're a senior. Stay NJ will take that to another level. So that's a long-winded way of saying to Gary that we're on, and I'll get Dennis to follow up with him and go through any other questions he has.
Okay, let's check back with David Mathau.
David?
For questions from social.
Why, thank you, Nancy. Governor, this is a question from Dawn in Berlin. She says, Governor Murphy, I would like to know why you are still putting the lives of the casino workers and patrons at risk from secondhand smoke. If it is a health emergency, you could stop it immediately if you wanted to, just like during the COVID epidemic.
Yes,
Berlin, New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
As opposed to back to my hometown of Berlin, Germany. Don, I wish it were that easy. But we are absolutely convinced that would be struck down the minute that executive order were to be signed. Let me say unequivocally, and I've been saying this, I think, for going on 8 years. If a bill gets to my desk that does just, Don, what you want to do in terms of smoking in casinos, I'll sign it. I've never waffled on that. I know there are two sides to this. There's a group that feels very strongly about health implications, and I completely respect that. Completely get it. It mostly comes from the dealers, the dealers union, and I completely get it. On the other side of the coin, there's more of an economic development, job loss concern / argument, which is not health. but also, compelling. Regardless of the weight of the arguments on either side, I've said I'll sign it. So I'm a little bit perplexed that folks are, when we know an executive order would not fly, we just know that. So Don, I'll reiterate the commitment. If the bill gets to my desk while I'm governor, and I suspect a bunch more will get to my desk between now and January 20, I will sign it.
Apologies if you said this in your answer, but who's in power here? Like who's fighting with whom? It's the casino workers versus the owners of the casino, or who's the other side that's arguing for smoky casinos?
I wouldn't say it's, well, that's putting your finger on the scale there, which I appreciate. I wouldn't say it's just the owners. It's folks who care about jobs in Atlantic City and the economic impact. So I guess, a casino owner would, I guess.
Are we talking about state legislators who represent that area?
I don't want to put names or words in their mouths, but elected officials who care about jobs and livelihoods, I think in my conversations, are very concerned about what this would do. And I'm completely respectful of the health concerns on behalf of, I think, first and foremost, the dealers. I'm not suggesting it's only the dealers, but that's the union that I think the UAW actually represents them. And that's where the main thrust has come from. And I think that there's, you never pit job creation against people putting their lives at risk, right? So I'm not suggesting there's an equivocal weight there, but those are two sets of compelling arguments. But having said all of that, the bill gets to my desk, I sign it.
Okay, we are going to go back to the phones. Can I let a New Yorker get a question
Come on,
off
man.
to you?
Yeah.
We'll go to Micah from Brooklyn on the line.
Hello, Micah.
Hi there, Governor Murphy. Yes, I am from New York. My mom is from New Jersey, though, and the Political Action Club at my school, as well as me, are big fans of yours. So thank you for everything you're doing. So I'm just curious. You mentioned earlier how this gerrymandering that we're seeing in Texas, we're seeing in all these red states, is really impacting Democrats, and how the most important thing that we as a party can do, because in so many of our states we are restricted by independent redistricting, by our state constitutions, to be able to redraw our maps to counter this, that the most important thing we can do in 2026, 2028, so on and so forth, is to vote in the midterms. So I'm curious, what would you say are the three most important things Democrats have to do right now, because our polling numbers are so low, but our base's anger is so high, to make sure we win these winnable midterm races? And furthermore, who are you kind of looking at as the next generation of leaders for the Democratic Party who can really bring us into 2028 and hopefully more victories to there?
Yeah, Micah, thank you for this. I'll take a pass on the second question, other than to say I think we've got an incredible bench. I'm biased toward governors because I know them the best. I've run the Democratic Governors Association twice, the National Governors Association, which admittedly is nonpartisan, but I know every governor in the country, and especially, the Democrats. I think we've got an extraordinary bench. What are the three most important things? Listen, registering, putting your sweat equity and your literal equity to work, and showing up, and remembering that elections have consequences, making sure that you don't miss out. The turnout for Kamala Harris last year was incredibly disappointing. Nationally, as well as in places like New Jersey, President Trump did somewhat better than he did in 2020, but somewhat is the operative word. The turnout we had as a party was awful. You got to show up, you got to vote, you got to register in order to vote, make your voice heard. And there is frustration. I get that completely. But there are winnable elections right before us. There was a special election just recently in Virginia for a congressman who was deceased. Democrats blew the Republican out of the water. It wasn't even close, so much so that there's a famous rant from a Republican operative out there saying, okay, I heard all your excuses. You don't like mail-in ballot. mail-in voting. You don't like this, you don't like that. Well, you know what? If you keep that way, we're going to get our doors blown off in 2026. As a Democrat, I hope he's right. I wish we had latitude in our Constitution, Micah, to do some of the creative stuff that's being done out there, even though I know everyone's got legitimate mixed emotions about throwing the rule book out. We don't in New Jersey, but there are winnable elections. CD7 is the one, Nance, that you and I have talked about over the years. That's a knife's edge district. It was just a little bit Republican. It then became, for a few cycles, a little bit Democratic. It's now gone back to a Republican seat. Tom Kaine has it. That's a battleground. I'm not sure the extent to which Chris Smith and Jeff Van Drew's districts are battleground. They feel less so. But let's go out there and win elections. That to me is, and by the way, starting with, I don't want to get political, but the 2 statewide elections in 2025 are in Virginia and New Jersey. This is right. This is the time to prove you can win, and then you build on that foundation. So that to me is the path forward, one step in front of the other.
Okay, thanks for your call, Micah. And let's take one last question from social media. David Mathau, what do you have?
Brian from Burlington says, Governor Murphy, given the wide range of electric car weights and to ensure a more equitable funding for road maintenance, would a weight-based electric car registration fee be a more appropriate alternative to the current flat fee?
Weight-based is in WEIGHT?
That would be correct, sir.
As opposed to WAIT.
Correct.
Interesting.
Because as you know, the fee for electric cars has just gone up dramatically.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. Brian, I haven't thought about it. And Dennis is going to be busy tomorrow. Dennis Zeveloff's going to get on the phone and debate this. And Dennis and I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon. So I'm going to hopefully connect with him after he connects with Brian. Listen, we're open-minded to a lot of things that allow us to move people and things as efficiently as possible, as affordably as possible, and in as environmentally friendly a way as possible. I just attended and kicked off a $70 million complete transformation of the New Brunswick train station yesterday. Just a really, if you look at what that's going to look like in 3 or 4 years, what New Brunswick's going to look like in 3 or 4 years. And I'm picking one example of many. I could talk about Walter Rand and Camden, or the electric cars that are going to be driving across the Turnpike extension, or Newark Penn, or the Gateway Project, or Metro Park, East Orange, all sorts of really exciting things, getting as many people to do the right thing by the environment, by their pocketbook. There's a lot of exciting stuff out there, and we're open-minded, Brian, to thinking about more things that we haven't thought of.
So the incentives for the tax rebate for buying an electric vehicle go away at the end of this month. How are things going in terms of what the state is doing? Like, I know there was a big buildup of providing electric charging stations. And so where do things stand with the sort of the hoped for transformation to electric?
It's going there. I can't give you where we are right off the top of my head among American states, but we have punched above our weight. So we've got the 11th largest population. We've been typically on electric cars number 7 through 9. So we're punching above where you would expect. The problem was we got in the office, I think I mentioned this to you, we were 40 something in electric charging locations. So we'll put an enormous amount of effort. We've continued to promote the sale of electric vehicles, but we'll put much more elbow grease into charging locations, and that has paid off.
Are they at the Turnpike rest stops yet?
If they're not entirely, they will be.
Okay.
That is, we had a little bit of a dust up with the Tesla folks a few months ago, but that's going in a very good direction.
Okay. Let's go back to the phones. We have Alan from Hampton on the line.
Hello, Alan.
Thank you, Governor Murphy. Good to meet you. My question for you is, the Department of Environmental Protection recently re-released its real rules concerning the height of the floodplains. And in the new rules that your Department of Environmental Protection released, affordable housing zones are allowed to be built in flood-prone areas. And I'm concerned about the resident safety and also the volunteers who have to go out and rescue people from homes that might flood. We're a rural area along rivers, nowhere near the coast, and flooding is an important issue for us.
Yeah, it's a good question, Alan. I'm going to have, and I know we're running out of time here, I'm going to have Sean LaTourette, the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, give you a call. Sean is extremely, not only is he well-versed in this more than certainly I am, but also extremely compelling as to why that is the case. There was another question we've gotten on film studios in the other direction. But the answer is, part of the answer at least, is the last thing we want to do is impair the development of affordable housing units in the state. But there are lots of other safeguards that will protect. When you look at the headline, you get concerned. Wait a minute, you're sort of splitting us into the haves and have-nots here, if you will, which is not the intention and not the reality at all. There are other very significant safeguards, and Sean can walk you through there, and he'll give you a shot within the next 24 hours.
Alan, thanks for your call. So I understand you're attending an event at NJPAC next week with documentary filmmaker Ken Burns, and he's talking about his new project on the American Revolution. So New Jersey is home to some very key historical sites, and I know you've been ramping up for the coming 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So tell us about this NJPAC event and kind of where you see the state in terms of getting ready for next year's anniversary.
Before I do, Dennis, the aforementioned Dennis Zeveloff would be mad at me if he said, you got to mention that there's $50 million in the budget for electric vehicle incentives. So
good. Okay.
Act now. We are really excited. And it's in the context of a modern history, at least, where New Jersey's story in the revolution was undertold.
Right.
Boston, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania sort of beat us to the march. And the fact of the matter is, and folks out there probably know this, but let's say it, more battles took place in the Revolutionary War in New Jersey than in any other state. And our view is, let's get our fair share of this. Yeah. Ken Burns is America's documentarian. He's coming into NJPAC next Wednesday for an incredible event at 1:30 njpac.org. There are very few seats left. Brian Williams, anchor Brian Williams, will be interviewing him. He'll be showing clips of his Revolution documentary. It is one of many really cool things that we have planned.
Sounds good. Okay, that's all we have for you tonight. You've been listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WHYY, and WNYC. Thanks to David Mathau, Luke Green, Joseph Capriglione, Matt Mirando. Wayne Schulmeister is our technical director, and the show is directed by Doug Doyle. I'm Nancy Solomon. This is Ask Governor Murphy.